Alrighty guys, so we're finally starting to pull down the big donk. It's been a pretty rough couple of weeks with stuff just not going the way that things were supposed to go. And I've been waiting for some engine room space to pull this down for quite a while. And it's pretty evident that it's just not going to happen for a little bit. So I've got in here and just tried to make as much room as I possibly could. At the moment I'm just literally shoving parts on the floor over on against the wall so that we can actually get this thing pulled down, so that at the very least we can order what we need to order ASAP so that it can get here in time. Because leading up to Christmas, the way everything's been rushed around and the knock-on effect from COVID, parts at the moment are in very short supply. They're pretty hard to get, so we want to order the parts we need for this ASAP. As you can see, I've just started pulling all the manifolds and everything off. I've literally just dumped the oil. So I've got the cams and stuff out. I was hoping to get the head off, but I've misplaced. I've got a socket specifically for doing these heads. It's hard with J's because between the two bosses for the lifters, or the buckets, is very skinny. So to try and get a socket down there that actually fits the top of the stud is very hard to do. And I did have one here specifically for that purpose, and I cannot freaking find it, so I'm probably just going to have to buy another one tomorrow. So needless to say, I can't get that off at the moment. So I moved on to just getting the sump off, and after I dropped the oil, the last bit that was coming out was really sludgy and gross, and there is some gross stuff in this sump. It is like real sludgy, real thick. Definitely like it's been some kind of reaction. So with the E85, it's no secret you got to be careful with what oils you use because of the way E85 reacts with them. It was my understanding that Todd was just running Penrite, which we do often run. Not only is there obviously lots of sludge in it, but there is lots of metal, lot of metal and a lot of gross stuff in here. The metal I sort of expected from the sounds that it was making, but the sludge is very, very strange. That is some weird stuff. Have seen it before on cars that that I run stupidly rich with oil that's not meant to be run with E85, and they react and it creates like this sort of sludge. But the tuner who tuned this car was very credible. I believe the tune was fine. I don't think it was any issues with the tune, and I believe that Todd was using Penrite oil. So very odd, very strange one. Righto guys, so I had a big day today of driving around. I had to go to South Brizzy and do a few things. While I was gone, Rex managed to get a little bit more of the J pulled apart. With the complete sump off and a good look at the bottom end, it's pretty easy to spot what the problem is. You can see this rod's discolored because it's been hot, because it is the problem. You can see a bit of movement there. So that is the bearing that has let go. Now the next question is, why has that bearing let go? You can still see, even on these caps and stuff, that sludge, that goop. Gross. I'd really like to know exactly what's going on there. But anyway, we'll have to do some more investigating as to what has gone wrong with this rod. Going back through our build sheet for this engine, this particular rod was tooth hour clearance on this journal. So it wasn't tight, wasn't overly tight. So for it to have grabbed, it appears it would have had to either get starved for oil, or all of that stuff that was left in the engine that we would hope sort of get filtered through. It's a lot of that's gone through it and caused an issue and hurt the bearing, or a combination of both. But we'll just have to keep going with it and try and figure out what the cause of this spun bearing is. So there's a fair bit of shavings and metal in the sump, in amongst all the goop, but it's hard because of how much was in this engine from the head not being cleaned out properly. It's hard to know how much of it is from this bearing and how much of it was already there from the head, because a lot of it's very big. Yep. Unhappy.
Let's just smash that bearing.
That's a cooked bearing.
Just flattened it and then spun it.
Obviously the way the J oiling system works is that it's priority mains. Each main feeds the rod behind it, which you can see the slug in the crank here. That's the galley that goes back to the main. So we'll be focusing very much on the gallery that goes from the rod back to number 2 main, and then from the number 2 main back, the oil artery back to the main feed, which feeds the main, and see what's going on. Obviously this will be tomorrow because it's late today, we don't have time. We pulled number 5 as well, just to have a look. And you can see the bearing in number 5's fairly unhappy. You can see there, it's had a lot of crap go through it. Anyway, I've got the correct socket to get the head off now. So we can get the head off this thing and finish pulling it down. Alright guys, we're getting further into this thing. All of the bearings pretty much look the same. They're all bedded with crap, had crap go through them. All the wear though, even though you can see how badly they've been worn from stuff going through the engine, the actual sort of the thrust part of the bearing looks fine. It's not like the tune was you know, punishing the bearings or anything. They're all fairly even, all looks pretty good. You can see all of this goopy stuff all over this freaking piston. Plenty of that in the engine, plenty of that going on. The skirts, some of the skirts are pretty average. You know, pretty freaking not amazing. Definitely is pointing just to the crap that was going through this engine. Where we're at here is pretty ungood though. As you can see, crank's bare, just in the block, main seal's off, and it is like difficult to turn. With just the crank in the block, you should be able to just turn that. It should just glide around, and that crank is really difficult to turn over. So it's time to pull these mains and see why that is, but it's not a very good sign. Right, yo guys, we are pulled down, and essentially exactly what we expected. Just had bulk shit go through it. Bearings are just toasted. Like you can see, a lot of this is just actually bedded in the bearing. The unfortunate thing is, at this stage, you know, it's impossible to know whether this is from the failed rod bearing or whether it's from the shit that was left in the head that wasn't cleaned up before it went on the engine and obviously just was going through the engine. So, you know, it's impossible to know what's what came first, sort of thing, the chicken or the egg. It's one of those situations. So another thing that is a potential possibility that we've been talking to a few people who have pretty big powered J's is aeration of the oil. You know, obviously from drifting, that is a very potential issue as well that could have played a part. As much as all this goopy grossness in the oil is a real worry and I don't like it, I don't believe that it's played a part in this failure. I don't think that it is to blame. I think it's pretty much going to be impossible to draw a conclusion as to what exactly was the cause, but I think it definitely must have hurt it at Matsuri. And I think it must have just progressively gotten worse in the street driving that Todd was doing, to the point obviously where it was actually making a noise. So it's a hard one because I didn't control the whole thing. We didn't put the head on, we didn't make sure the head was clean, we didn't do our processes of doing that. So, you know, if we had controlled that whole scenario, you know, we would be 100% taking responsibility for what's going on here, because, you know, looking at it, it's nothing tune related. It seems like it's either aeration of oil coupled with probably all the crap that initially went through it, but it's impossible to draw that conclusion definitively. So, you know, that rod bearing was not overly a tight clearance. It was, all the clearances were really good on this thing. I was really happy with all the clearances. But because of the stuff that's gone through the skirts and the oil that's been up in the bores and caught up in the oil rings and dragged up and down the bores, this thing will need a hone anyway. Either way, it's going to be a full-flighted rebuild. Bearings, rings. You know, the crank's going to need a grind, definitely. Definitely going to need a grind. So, yeah, pretty much a full rebuild, which sucks, but that is what it is. Not much we can do about it now, except fix it, obviously. But anyway, at least it hasn't done any catastrophic damage. You know, all of this is fixable, fairly simply fixable. Bearings, rings, hone, back on our way. You know, it's not like it's destroyed a rod or sent a rod through a block or something. All of the main caps, all of that could be reused. We don't have to pay for that machining. You know, a lot of the real expensive stuff that went into the engine, none of it's an issue. It's just a matter of a pretty simple rebuild. So these cams definitely going to need a linish, and I'm going to talk to them about what they can do about the cam bores. Same thing, where it's just the crap that went through this engine. It's just it's damaged these cam journals, just to the point where I'm not super happy with them. But yeah, you can see, I don't know, if I pick up one if I'll be lucky, but you can see the cam caps aren't too crash hot either. I'd really like to have them sorted out. But yeah, I'm really not sure what SP Automotive might be able to do as far as linishing the cam bores or honing the cam bores, or what the process is there. So we got onto them, talk about that. But that's pretty much this thing. Do it again. Like, this goopy stuff's pretty gross, but like you can see in my fingers, it's, you know, it thins out. It's not hard. So as much as, you know, the pickup was full of it, when I pulled the pickup out, it was pretty gross. I'd say the only way that this probably potentially may have played a part is just if there was enough in the pickup that it was just enough for the pump to cavitate, you know? Like, I don't think this would block anything, particularly like 100% block, but just if it was a bit thick in the pickup and there was a bit much in there, potentially the pump might have cavitated it. It's about the last thing we've got left to do is pull the pump apart and have a look at what the pump looks like, so might do that. Righto guys, so I pulled the pump apart and she is pretty cactus. Like, she's well cooked. You know, gears are cooked, housing's cooked, backing plate's cooked. So here lies another potential for more issues while it's happening, because you know these gears rely on the dynamic seal of the backing plate to actually draw oil, and if it's that bad that it's affecting the dynamic seal in the pump, that could also cause cavitation in air and things like that. So you know, it's unfortunate that we can't really draw a proper conclusion, but hey, that's engines and that's carnage. Alrighty guys, so we've got the block, head, pistons, rods all cleaned up, stripped, ready to go to the machine shop. Now I've got a little bit of oil there that came out of this thing. I really want to try and find a company that can do like an oil analysis on the oil that came out of it, because I really want to know what that goopy stuff is. I really want to know what's going on. I don't want to be guessing. I really want to know what the goopy stuff is from the oil. As much as I don't think it caused what's going on here, it's obviously very important to me to not make sure that doesn't happen. Obviously, if that reaction was to continue and get worse, it would eventually cause damage. So I really want to know what it is, so that I know what reaction it is, so that we know that for future. So that's ready to go. That's pretty much the teardown. We'll pretty much tune back in once we get everything back here, ready to go back together. I haven't even actually spoken to Todd, the owner, about whether he's happy for me to put this up yet, so I don't even know at this point whether this will even go up. But anyway, hopefully it does. But we'll get this thing sorted out and back together, and hopefully be a little bit knowledgeable on what's going on with the combination of chemicals that's going on in this thing. So we'll sort that out. Thanks for watching anyway, guys. Smash like, smash subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out. See you. Bye.